Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this event, which is looking at tech, cybersecurity, and the future of Africa. We are going to have three amazing guests who are going to speak about their expertise, their areas of research, and then we will have time at the end, hopefully, for a Q&A and a discussion. First off, we are going to be hearing from Phiona. Phiona is an engineer, a founder, community volunteer, and a consultant, amongst many other things. She is extremely accomplished, and I cannot wait to hear from her. So, Phiona, if you could take us off and start your presentation. Thank you.
Uh, Good evening, wherever you're watching us. Good morning for those that are joining us from different spaces. My name is Phiona Bukulu. I'm very much elated to be here and on this platform. I don't take it for granted. I want to first of all congratulate the hosts of the event for the work well done, and I commend you that you could pull this off successfully. Thank you so much. Secondly, I want to thank my fellow speakers for tonight. Doreen and Esther. We are super excited, and we are very excited to hear from you. And hopefully, this is gonna be an amazing event where people can take away things from. In such conversations, I normally don't want to have presentations. It kind of for me looks like another classroom, another lecture, being given. And for those of you who have been in those spaces, you don't want to be in that formal kind of way. I love it kind of informal, but also give it an open dialogue so that people can freely interact. So about Phiona and what I'm currently doing. Currently, I am the lead coordinator, the project's lead coordinator of International Trade Center, a UN organization based in Geneva, but I'm working remotely in Uganda. Opportunities are here. It's a project for young entrepreneurs in the culture and creative industry. Strictly here, we look at film, we look at actors, script writers, and how to empower them. Of course, someone will be like, but this is a tech summit. Yes, it is. But that's what diversity looks like. Apart from that, I'm also the founder, like my colleague introduced me, of Novus Innovation Initiative. At Novus Innovation, it's an NGO. We really use digital technology to revolutionize how people access information, goods, and services. We stimulate economic growth. We improve development outcomes. Of course, our major thing here is we envision a future in which digital technology promotes inclusive growth, fosters resilient and democratic societies, and empowers all people. But our major catch or our demographics is particularly the vulnerable and the marginalized. In this, we look at refugees, we look at women, youths, that really more in the remote areas of the country. And we have diverse programs, of course, at Novus, where we've worked with different spaces, we've collaborated with different NGOs, and this I'm going to give you a nutshell. My colleagues asked me to share how Novus was started and what inspired, its bringing forth to Novus Innovation. When I was in Europe studying, it kind of looked like we're in different worlds. For me, I look at Africa as the continent for the future. When you invest in it, you invested in the future of the world. We can debate on this whole day. That's my belief. With the youngest, Uganda comes second to Niger with the youngest population, and its median age is 15.5 years, meaning that 78% of our population is actually below the age of 30. Now, that means that a lot has to be done in forms of development, empowerment, and above all, the digital literacy. Now, while at my school, we had all these privileges. You travel from one country to another. You have all these conferences. It's all cool. It's all wonderful. But having been raised and grown in a decent African home, it kind of felt like I was the change I've always looked out to be. So much of us, we kind of in different, I don't know the setting in Ghana and Nigeria, probably they all share their perspective. We kind of look at the government to provide everything we need. But for me, this time around, it kind of sounded different after completion of school. It looked like I was the agent of change, I was looking out for. And I made a tough decision and was like, you know what, I'm going to go home. It's not usual because normally after school, just like any other child, you are allowed to stay, you can have a work permit, you can work. But for me, it was different. I decided to board the plane and come back home. But then how differently was home going to be like for me? It wasn't on my first agenda to look for a job because it kind of looked like impossible to get employed and in a country where we have a 45-50% unemployment rate of people that have graduated. So I kind of needed to find another angle on how we can help the youths of the country to get, firstly, visibility on what they were doing, but appreciate the role of technology in our community and what accomplishment has been done in the space. So that's where Novus gets birthed from. At Novus, we sat to see how do we investigate the future, but also shine a spotlight on what the young people are doing across the country and tell the story of the untold, and of course, cause the young people believe in themselves again. We looked at so many different things, but one of the things we first looked out was a show called Tech Nation. Now, Tech Nation, if you can go on YouTube, you can Google it and search it out. It was a TV show, or it is a TV show that we used to try to look out for different innovations across the country. Why we did that was many young people were doing so many amazing things, but the media in the country is very politicized, and less of the innovation spaces is tapped into to bring to limelight what is being achieved. At Tech Nation, who was successful, we partnered with Uganda's biggest media house, Next Media and NTV. And then as a startup, definitely, I dabbled as a producer and the TV host of that show. But it was so fulfilling to see what was being done and what the young people were doing in the country that, impacted the livelihoods of the community. For us, this was very fulfilling, and we did that every single week. We brought a new feature, a new innovation to the spotlight, into the world of television. This was also covered in Daily Monitor, Uganda's biggest newspaper, and at least we were able to record successful outcome. At least one of our people we featured, Yunga Technology, emerged to be the best African innovation on the Royal Academy of Engineering. Those of you who know it, this is a most prestigious award awarded by the Royals from London. And we, as Uganda, were able to scoop that. But apart from that, the collaborations that came from this, to further foster and establish these young innovations, the funding, the partnerships across the globe and African countries was a lot fulfilling than any other thing we could ever ask for. The other element of Tech Nation we do is high tech space. Like you hear it, high tech space. It's not a feminine verb, like when people hear her or women or what, they think it's going to be like, another move of feminism. No. At Novus, we came up with this to inspire young women in STEM in their earlier or mid-careers in Uganda at a world stage. In the high-tech space, we partnered with AnitaB.org, an NGO based in the US. And here, we connect and strengthen women in STEM. We connected the technological women in the industry with the collaborative world to have open conversation around their career. Many women in their earlier stages of STEM, I'm an engineer, I can attest to that, have meandered either by the biases in the industry, by the dominance of men. So you find someone did civil engineering, but they end up, becoming businesswomen, shopping shoes and selling clothes. So we have these talks, and we've been able to successfully have them where the people in the professional world really work as inspiration and mentors to strengthen, the young women that are starting out their journey to be able to strengthen themselves. But how have we done this? We work with men as allies. For us to ensure that HeartXS is successful, we had to work with different men in different spaces to ensure that women are also helped. Men are brothers, are husbands, and all these spaces, men have always been there. So we have been able to successfully work with that. If you look at our first episodes, we had the men who have been very, very supportive, and these even have driven policy and dialogue into their chambers to ensure that this is achieved. The other thing we do so well is digital skills training, and this we look at it at grassroots levels. We work with focus groups, women, and how do we help them appreciate the role of technology. In rural areas, most countries, at least for Uganda, I can attest, we have limited access to digital technologies. And, it's also accompanied by lack of digital skills, among various social groups. And this, if you've been to refugee camps, you will attest, the people tend to be disconnected from the world. But yet, if we want to equip people and lessen the gender digital divide, then we have to start with the skilling of people, giving them the fundamental skills and competences that can enable them to do simple work and leverage technology to increase their productivity and economic growth. So that's what we've been doing on a large scale as well, and helping, people, digitalization of their businesses, WhatsApp, how do you use your status, how can you sell, how do you remove a middleman from a chain that you can, equip yourself more, and, you take advantage of what is being done and what is on the market. Of course, apart from Novus work, a lot has been done. I've worked with MasterCard Foundation and HEFA International on the IoT African Challenge, which is an agri-tech startup ecopreneurship, where we work with young people in the tech sector and enable them to appreciate agriculture, leveraging technology. I've also supported the UN Women in Uganda on the African Girls Code Initiative, where I was the project lead. I also hosted the show at large to help the young girls code their way to the future. This we partnered with Siemens, Spotlight Initiative, and African Union. I've also worked with Anita B on the regional level, where I'm the coordinator for Africa and Middle East. And the reason for this was, how do we help women again in STEM, to help them leverage the existing technological devices, grow them in career, and take up their space in the STEM world. The future for Africa is bright. The earlier we embrace technology, I believe the better. Africa, again, I repeat, is the continent for the future. The earlier we believe in it and invest in it, the better. I always tell my friends, yes, you can be in the diaspora. Yes, you can be wherever you are. Be that change we need. The government is not coming. It's not about to come. It has never come. We have to change wherever we are. Technology has, with the emerging technologies, and thankfully, we all have exposure to them. We can have everything we need and desire, and we can transform our communities, leveraging on technology. So far, those are some of the things I've done. Of course, I cannot explain everything like we are doing down here. I love the current project I'm doing as at the UN. We are really, really seeing, okay, how do we help the creative industry to leverage technology to ensure that, yes, you're an artist, but with emerging technology, how are you using AI? How are you using virtual reality? How are you using all the technology spaces, that have been availed to advance your career? You middleman to connect you to someone in the US. You could just create a platform on social media platform, and someone will see your work. They'll watch your work on Spotify, as in how do you grow yourself, enable yourself. And for me, some of those work are very fulfilling. I'm very driven by the community impact, we have every single day. If we can serve people, then we can serve the world, and then we can have change and impact to the people we have in our community. I think that's my submission, and that's what I can say in this first phase of our conversation. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the overview, especially with what you do. I think the work you're doing is very inspiring, and the way in which you're using media to reach people as well is an amazing thing to do, because you're meeting people and you're meeting young people, especially where they are at. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat and we will get onto it afterwards. But we are going to move on to our next speaker, which is Esther. And Esther is joining us from Nigeria, I believe. And she's a lead analyst at a security firm. So we will be hearing from her next. So, Esther, please, if you could take it away.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. You might have to pardon the noise in case there's any noise echo at the back end. My name is Esther Olaosebikan. I am the lead analyst for Bulwark Intelligence, and my firm focuses on security. It's a security firm that is leading in its cause to help give information, real-time information about ongoing security threats within Nigeria, Africa, and the rest of the world. So one of the reasons why I was so passionate about joining in on this, and I was like I held on to the topic of I'm really passionate about security. It's something that in this growing world, in the vast majority of the things we do within the world, we have to be secure. And in a world where we have evolving technologies, safety is priority, is paramount. And if we are not safe, then there is we are putting a stoppage in a lot of things within our ecosystem. There is going to be a vast majority of things going down the drain. So the reason why I actually had a presentation, so I'll try and share my screen. Okay, here's the thing. I love show and tell. I'm very passionate about that. So I would be sharing my screen to present something to you about safeguarding Africa. Let me find that. Okay. Let me share my screen. Please just let me know if you can't see it clearly.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So when I was told about this topic, and I actually hit a stomping ground as to what am I going to talk about, because I'm just someone starting in my journey into cybersecurity. I've worked with I've been an intelligence analyst for 3 years now with Bulwark Intelligence. I have helped to compile a lot of analysis about ongoing things and security that are happening around the world for my company. And I've been really passionate about it, but I noticed a trend that was actually seeping into my workspace, and that was AI. And the detriment at which we have a lot of open sources, we have a lot of issues with our security system within Africa was really alarming to me. So I told myself that, Esther, we're going to go on a journey of finding a way. I've learned ways of protecting people, giving analysis on how you stay safe physically when you go to certain locations. However, I just noticed that protecting myself in the digital space was something that was lacking in. And so I decided that, okay, I was going to go on this journey and figure out means of helping myself to get stronger. And this came out of fascination. Then I got into this space, and there were some amazing things that I figured out in the long run. So I'm going to just be touching on a few things. And seeing as we're not going deep into it, I'll just touch on it. It's a very, very deep topic. And so it's not something that you just cover within 20 minutes. So we might go at a certain speed, but I'm always happy to get the questions at the end. So if you have any questions while we go forward, please just let me know. So before we move forward, there's actually a video that stirred me into looking further into AI. I think this was one of the videos that introduced me fully into AI optimization, and I could not tell my story. It's a funny one. I could not tell my story without actually going back to this video and playing it for people to see. And I just hope that while I play it, we can get the few things aside the humor in it. And it's just like a 1 minute video. Let's watch it.
Looking to upskill for the future?
This new AI can perform all coding jobs in seconds, including blockchain development. While this AI is already outperforming accounting firms. Meanwhile, the new graphic design AI aims to automate graphic design and could minimize the need.
Relax. Because in a future where AI does most of the work, there'll be one thing that humans will finally get to do all day long. Nothing. So it's time to learn the most essential skill of the future. 5-Star presents Nothing University with the first ever diploma program in doing nothing. An intensive course covering the most future-ready skills out there.
Well, let me check with the and get back to you in a few days.
With our state-of-the-art workshops, campus placements, and guest lectures, the world can finally prepare for the glorious future that awaits us. Eat 5-Star, do nothing. Enroll now.
Okay.
Looking to
So,
upskill for the future?
so I hope we're able to listen in on the video and everything. Yeah. So the one thing that I actually watched after I watched this video, I think this was before my first class into cybersecurity. And I watched this video, I laughed, and it was funny to me. Then I moved to the second stage of realization. That was the stage where I realized that as funny as it was, as funny as it is, it's actually the truth. That is the generation we're moving into, where every single thing you want to actually do, it's already been done by AI. We have cases of people finding ways, software engineering. I think that's the latest one right now, where there's an AI that can actually do the whole thing for you. And that was one of the roles that we're like, oh, there's no way AI could take this from us. But now it's taking it from you. So when I heard this, and when I watched this video, I decided to go on a very strong research. Like I went deep into research and figured out how is the best way to protect yourself in a world where every single thing you're going to think of doing, AI could do it. And so I came across some amazing stories. Okay, now let me take you all into this mindset of imagine yourself at home and a family member calls you, or someone just texts you and tells you, I have your family member and you have to pay this amount, this so ransom for the person. And you're like, okay, I need proof because we have a lot of scammers out there. Like, I need you to give me proof that you're holding my family member. And they put a call through and you're able to speak to a loved one directly. And this is your loved one's voice. They're telling you the exact things that the person knows, like, and everything. And it's alarming. And you're like, okay, sure, I'll pay up. And the next minute you're like, you know what, hold on. Let me call someone whom I know where my family member is. And you call them and they tell you, he's sitting right next to me. And you're wondering what just happened. That is the story of a few women who have been through this, not just women, a lot of demographic, especially in the United States right now, where there is now an AI software that can imitate and mimic the voice of your family member exactly. So in Nigeria, there's something called when the scammers do it, you already know their pattern. They call you, they send you a text and be like, so send me this so amount of money. I can't speak to you right now. And you're like, okay, let me send it straight up. And it's your family member. But the first question you ask is, first, I would like to speak to you. I want to have video proof that you're the one requesting this money. And you're like, the next thing they tell you is, okay, sure, let's get on a call. Let's speak. The moment you speak to them, you realize, okay, it's my family member. Normally, scammers won't be able to emulate. They won't be able to like put on a video. They don't have that. But we now have AI softwares that can easily mimic the voice, do deep fakes. And deep fakes, when I mean deep fakes, you can easily see the person speaking to you directly. And so these stories are quite alarming in this world that we're living in. And in my head, there was a moment where I was like, okay, this is the road I found myself in. I'm going to continue on. Because even if it's not something I want to do professionally, even if it's something that I don't need professionally, it's something that is a must-have for the coming future. is something that I have to know how to take care of myself and protect myself in the coming future. Stephen Hawking says that AI is likely to be either the best thing or the worst thing to happen to humanity. And that is one of the driving force behind me going into searching more. So every single day I go online and I'm researching intelligence, I'm compiling data, I'm always researching and figuring out things that are affecting human beings. And this is the one constant thing that is always a common denominator in every security threat. And this is coming from my 3 years of experience. It is always a common denominator. And the mindset that AI just starting to boom it is not true. AI has been in existence for a very long time. So that was what drove me into going further into my research and figuring out a few things. And one of the reasons why I was so passionate about this and the reason why it's coming up during Women's Month is because 1 out of 10 girls have been impacted by cybercrime. You line up 10 amazing women and at least one of them has been impacted by it. And there is no given data that specifies, women are more impacted by cybercrime. But what data has actually shown is at the end of it all, when there's a cyber attack, the one that has the greatest impact is on the women majorly. Because we have cases now. There was a recent case last year of a Ukrainian lady who went online one morning and saw her face. She was speaking Mandarin. She was claiming she was a Russian lady looking for a Chinese husband. And the shock on her face, like when she realized this, like, this is not me, but this person speaks like me, has the same mannerism I do. And she was wondering, okay, what's going on? And it's something that has been a continuous trend. And we hear little stories at the background, and we do not realize that it keeps getting higher every single day. So 10 out of 54 African countries have formulated AI strategies. The reason why I'm diverting from the women clause now to Africa in general is because the reason why I want us in Africa to spearhead a campaign in AI is because we're so far behind and we don't realize how far behind we are. Because now we're getting AI from foreign countries, we're getting AI apps from different countries all around the world, and it is not fine-tuned to the African culture. It is not fine-tuned to Africa in general. And we have a lot of women spearheading campaigns for this. However, it's not getting the notice it's supposed to be getting. AI is a fast-moving trend that at the end of it all, $10.5 trillion is going to be the cost attributed to cybercrime in 2025. And this would play in line with AI helping cybercrime to actually increase costs, make people lose that amount of money. And so I was like, okay, we need to like call a platform. And as a group, as the group it has been, I was like, okay, this is the point where we create that realization for people. And going deeper into it, I wanted to actually talk about the countries that are actually impacting on this. Currently, we have 10 African countries that have national AI strategies. Others are actually in the process of creating some. Nigeria is in the process. South Africa is in the process. Egypt is in the process. But as of now, it's only Rwanda, Benin, and Egypt, Morocco, Mauritius, Sierra Leone, and Senegal that have actually presented AI strategies to the European Union on how they're going to go about their policies in reference to AI and its impact in Africa. And this is something that we as Africans should actually put ourselves in that notion of building a trend, building a movement where we're able to use cybersecurity within AI. Now, the thing is, it's a question of man versus machine, not man versus man anymore. And we are going to be left behind if we do not have a way of counteracting cybercrime with the use of AI. If AI is what is going to be used against us, we have to use a means in order to fight against cybercrime by actually optimizing AI itself. So we do this with legislation. There are laws of cybersecurity and vulnerabilities. And in legislation, we have a few countries that have actually put in place means of actually countering cybercrime. And we have countries like Nigeria, we have Ghana, we have South Africa. However, their laws are not strong enough. So as a woman and you're being cyber stalked or you're being attacked or online, the chances of them attending to it is one in, let's just say 20% out of 100% at this point, because our legislations are good. Yes, they're in place, but they are not strongly in place. So you cannot, it's not something you fully rely on when we're just fully getting into it. So it's a case of you knowing what the legislations are and how you can protect yourself, even with the legislation, even with the laws that have been put in place to protect you. So some of the vulnerabilities, I think you can talk about cybersecurity without talking about the vulnerabilities. And there was one law that actually hit me, and it was like, everything has a vulnerability. Even AI has vulnerabilities. And so we cannot leave that behind. In Africa, our vulnerabilities are very plain to see. We have inadequate facilities, we have insufficient infrastructures, we have limited regulations. And in the coming advancement of AI, this in itself are actually, this is scary, that our vulnerabilities are part of the basic needs that we need to be able to fight AI. So in a society where this is happening, it is up to you as an individual. Now, there's no excuse of, oh, I'm ignorant of it. Ignorance is no longer an excuse when it comes to cybersecurity. Ignorance is not an excuse when it comes to AI. We all know what AI is doing, except you want to go and hide in the village or something. Even there, AI is still going to get you. So this is not like me preaching the whole, oh, AI is coming for you. No, as a human being, the reason why I wanted to have this conversation is I want people to live here with the knowledge that even though this is happening, the best way I can protect myself is going on research, is finding ways to project what the future holds for me, knowing where I am in tech in general, everyone in tech in general, knowing where you are and how you can find a way to move past that. So there are threats of AI, and AI is not bad. That's what I want to make clear. AI is not bad. It is who uses it that determines the impact it's going to have on you. So there have been threats of AI in the hands of hackers, and this is one of the deterrents to it. And this is AI-powered phishing, like I talked about, deep fakes. Like I told you the story of the lady who had child called and said, oh, I've been kidnapped. That in itself. And it's so easy for them to do this because the problem with it is the ease that comes with doing all these things. Like it just takes you downloading the software. Normally, I think the one pride hackers have had is, or they go through the rigorous process of finding your network, finding this part, going through all that. Now it's so easy for them. They just have to tell AI to do the social engineering, figure out what your likes and your dislikes are, how you would speak, how you would move, and then they determine how they go about hacking into your system. So it is important that you actually put yourself into that position where you cannot I think the one I've been watching a lot of TED Talks, and one of the things that hit me was you cannot survive in this society if you do not think like a hacker. And that's the truth. You need to think like the hacker. You need to think like whoever is going to attack you. Okay, so if you're going to come this way, I already have a means of protecting myself this way. So it's a problem. It is something that we need to work on. And we have the automated malware development. This is where automation, evasion, it adapts. That's the thing about AI. AI is not humans. They can adapt to whatever it is you bring their way. So they do not rely on failures like we do, like, oh, I'll go back and come back, there's fatigue. They don't rely on that. Straight up, if they're going to hack you, it's going to be a continuous process, and they will learn from their faults and progress and adapt to it. So if you're using an automated, if you're being impacted by an automated malware development, these are things you need to know about. And one thing about AI is the exploitation of system. So I took on a small project. I've been conversing with an AI, and I made a comment, and the fact that AI was able to evolve and have a stable conversation with me was scary to me, because this is you like talking to a friend, and that was scary. So it's something that we need to come to the realization of. It is now a thinking agent. As of now, there is an AI, I think they call it Grace. She can think and emulate the wants of human beings. So she is demanding that, oh, she wants to have a job. She wants to be able to move from one location to the other. That is AI at its highest peak. And that is already happening. So if you think that, oh, it is just the boom period, no, it's been in the works for decades now. And we need to progress with that. And so I think for me, I'll just brush through the rest of the things I need to speak about. So in empowering Africa against cyber threats, the one thing we need to do is community engagement. And like what first speaker, she already said it, she's already pioneering this. And when I heard her speak about her involvement in her project, and I'm like, this is what this is all about. Okay, you need to get involved in AI, not because it's just a passing fancy. It is the future, and the future is now. So it's the best time to get involved and know how to build yourself. And that goes to capacity building. We have women that are using AI to reconstruct agriculture in itself. There's a lady currently in Kenya. She's currently doing this, and she's able to do the automation for how plants grow and how you can put it out there. And there's always this public to private organizations reaching out to the public in regards to legislation. This is the way we can help each other, understanding the laws that protect you and how you can protect yourself with those laws. And so I will just brush through the last thing. AI is not a genie, it's a tool. We control how it's used, whether it benefits or it harms us. And this is where I'm going to like put it to a close, because I want us to leave with this parting knowledge. In our society, safety is paramount. And as a woman, we always have to look both ways before we cross the street. We have to look both ways in whatever situation we're going to. We have to ensure extra care. And the global market is now all about tech. So the best way to know how to protect yourself as you merge into it, and it's a cry for help because a lot of girls are impacted by this, where you have people that are sending explicit images of someone and you're like, I never even took these images. It's not a case of whether or not it's true. You can't even trust the videos, you can't trust the audios, you can't trust what you see anymore. So it's a case of trusting yourself on how you improve yourself. And this is where I put it to close on my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Esther, for that very interesting presentation. I would like to know from the people here, how many of them have used AI, have utilized any sort of tool as well, even if it's just, a chat GPT or some sort of image generation or illustration platform as well. I think especially in my work in security, I'm seeing a lot more people use AI for responses in research, which is scary because you're right, AI is such a great tool. However, people are not being properly taught how to use it. So in my research, I'm seeing that when I ask people questions, they use AI and give an AI generated answer. And while that might be their opinion, they don't know how to use it to properly support their thoughts rather than having AI think for them. And that, again, is very scary because what does the world look like if we are all using ChatGPT for our answers in everything? Okay, so the time is fast ending and we have one last speaker, Doreen. Now, if you don't know, Ghana does not have stable electricity. I do not know where this propaganda came from, but Ghana has not had stable electricity for a long time. So I think Doreen is joining from her phone and she might not be able to turn on her camera. So please bear with, please. But yes, this is going to be our final speaker of today. And please do put in any questions that you have in the chat. So Doreen, please take it away.
Yes. Hi, Leonie. So I just realized that my internet is dragging a bit. So just let me know at any point if you need me to repeat anything. And I'm happy you turned on your camera for me because this is going to be my face whilst I'm speaking. All right. So my name is Doreen and I work with the Digital Transformation Center. It's a project under GIZ. And I personally work in GIZ Ghana. The work that I do is, for now, we currently work on what we call policy and cooperation. And I listened to a little bit of the first speaker, but a lot of the second speaker that came on because of my internet and power challenges. I think I'm going to wrap up everything that has been said from the policy perspective, because what we should know is that for each of these technologies that have been talked about by all our speakers to work, we need to be able to ensure that we have the right framework conditions that will support the work that these technologies have been designed to do. But before I get into that, just a little bit about my journey, and I'm going to try and keep it brief so that we can have the floor for question and answers. So I started off people keep asking me what course I read in school and how I ended up here. The interesting thing for me is that I never read any tech program or tech course back in university. I read a very popular course, which is psychology. And there is no linkage between, at least very little linkage between what I'm currently doing and what the program I read actually entails. But one of the things that I've always known is that I have been passionate about entrepreneurship. And so even at a young age, I've always wanted to see how best I could improve my economic situation. And so after university, I decided to volunteer with a couple of organizations. And through that process, I ended up founding my own social enterprise. That was also the time, I think that was around 2017, 18, thereabout. There was a huge buzz around tech in Ghana. And there was also a huge buzz around how people can move beyond the traditional entrepreneurship process to incorporating technology into the operations. And so I got quite interested in that space. I learned more about it. And through that, I ended up in another role that entailed that I support tech startups in Ghana. So I worked with a couple of tech startups across the country, not just in Accra, but working with hubs across the country to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And through that, I was also able to support some tech startups in 3 other countries through a program that I implemented as a project manager at the time. And this actually opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of the challenges that we have here in Ghana, the landscapes are quite similar for most of the African countries. And so sometimes we see some opportunities here or some challenges here in Ghana, but you'd realize that it is also similar in some other countries as well. So specifically, I worked with startups in Uganda, in Rwanda, and also in South Africa. This program was very, very successful. And it's also helped me to be able to better understand, more broadly how the tech ecosystem works. Sorry, how the tech ecosystem works, and also more importantly, the role that policy plays in the entire ecosystem. So let me just make it practical for you. A startup, we all know that startups need a couple of instruments to work, right? So for example, people talk about funding, people talk about business development support, people talk about the entire process of building your business. So for example, the registration process, scaling your business, etc. One of the things that we need to also understand is that for these instruments to work, they need to be rightly put in place by the stakeholders that are concerned with these topics. So for example, the government needs to work with private sector institutions, such as the banks, etc., to make funding access very easy for these startups. The business registration process, people keep complaining about. Back in 2017, when I had to register my business, it was quite difficult because getting access to information was very, very hard. I had to go to the Registrar General's department, make a few inquiries here and there. But if we make the process seamless for them, it makes it easier for them to be able to run their businesses. And the good news is that tech can make it very easy for you, but we need the structures to be put in place by the right agencies and institutions. So one of the policy documents that I started working on in my current organization was the Ghana Startup and Innovation Bill. I don't know if any of us on this call have heard about this, but this bill is supposed to be a policy document that has a couple of initiatives that will help make the work of startups very easy. So for example, I spoke about working with RGD to ensure that information is accessible to them. RGD is the Registrar General's department in Ghana. So for example, again, like I said, working with the banks, making access to funding, loans, etc., very, very seamless for these startups with very very appreciable interest rate and all of that. Apart from that, I also worked on a couple of initiatives with the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization in Ghana. One of the things that we have been supporting the ministry currently do is to bring together all of the development agencies that support ICT work in Ghana. So I know most of us know, apart from where I work, GIZ Ghana, there are a couple of other agencies such as the MasterCard Foundation, the UN. We have a lot of them, the Canadian High Commission, etc. So what we do is that we bring together all of these organizations to see how best we could support the ministry to work towards the national agenda for the country. And so far, that has been very, very, very great so far. Two other policy documents that I also want to talk about. I know that the second speaker spoke about some countries that have their AI strategies that have been passed, and some are also working on that at the moment. One of my colleagues is on the call, and she works on a project under the project that I work in that is putting together a national AI strategy for the country. So just in case we didn't know, Ghana is also currently putting together a national AI strategy, and this is something that GIZ Ghana has been supporting them on so far. We need to understand that AI is currently getting advanced in the country, and the best time to actually put in place these structures is right now. We heard, I think, about a week or two ago that the European Union had put together some AI legislation and all of that. Now, the point here is that if we allow AI to fully get immersed into the space before we put in place these structures, it becomes a bit more difficult to manage it as compared to having the structures in place before AI adoption becomes more immersed into the country. So GIZ has been supporting, again, the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization to put together this national AI strategy. It's not been passed yet, but it's still in the process of getting there at the moment. One other thing that the government of Ghana is also doing at the moment is putting together what we call the digital economy policy document. So what this document is doing is that there are 5 main pillars under this policy. If we know digital, we know that digital is cross-cutting. What it means is that digital is only a tool, it's a means. So it's affecting so many sectors. When you pick the health sector, we are trying to leverage digital to maximize the impact of that sector. The health sector, the agri sector, the entrepreneurial sector, etc. So the Ministry of Communication has put together a digital economy policy where they have segmented these 5 sectors and looking at ways that we could use technology to better maximize its impact for the country. And as we speak now, that document is also it's in the process, it's in the pipeline. So all things being equal, if we are fortunate enough, we will soon be having 3 policy documents that will be passed in the space of technology that will be very, very useful. So one is going to be in the entrepreneurial space. That's the Ghana Startup and Innovation Bill. One in the AI space, that's the National AI Strategy. And then one broadly affecting digital in the country, that's the Digital Economy Policy document. So yeah, I think that's some of the few things that I wanted to also share to top up with the information that has been shared by our first and second speakers. The role that policy and policymakers play in the relevance of tech and digital in the country, and also the need for us as citizens to understand how all of these, the implications of technology and why we need to play our roles in the effective use of technology. Mostly we realize that policy is such a boring topic. When I was getting into policy, I felt like it was a boring topic. People think it's a boring topic, but it's very important for us to understand how these technologies are impacting our lives. And the only way that we can know about these things is through the policies and regulations that surround the use of technology in our lives. So I'm going to pause here and hand over to Leonie, because I see we have just 7 minutes left. Hopefully next time when I join the meeting, I'll have power to properly do my presentation. But thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you so much, Doreen, for giving us an overview of the policy. I do think that it has been really interesting to know, seeing as how, we've spoken about what individuals and organizations and the creative side can do. So it is good to hear that there are people who are working within governments to push for actual legislation and kind of, I guess, fill the gaps of those inadequacies and those inefficiencies that Esther touched on. Yes, we have about 7 minutes left. So this is going to be the time for questions. We have a question in the chat. I assume this is for Esther, which says, as an intelligence analyst in Africa, what is the futuristic prospect of the use of AI? Are the disadvantages more, and how do we get prepared? So Esther, if you don't mind taking that question.
Okay, so thank you for that question. This was one of the questions I asked myself while I was working on this. And for me, I believe that there is a prospect of the use of AI in intelligence gathering. And the fact is we cannot go up against AI as humans with our own intelligence. So there are people out there who are actually, their organizations, like one of the speakers have spoke about, there are organizations that actually formulate plans and they actually work towards enhancing cyber security within AI. So now you have cybersecurity, AI cybersecurity, learning and adapting to the possible threats that AI itself could pose and counteracting that. And in Africa, it is, I don't want to believe that we are late to the game, because even with us being late in general, like they put it, it means that we're able to learn from the experiences of other countries. So we're able to learn from those experiences, able to learn from the deficiencies and build up on that. And one of the things you can work around that is understanding that security is something that is progressive. We grow with it. So as AI evolves, cybersecurity evolves with it, and cybersecurity in Africa evolves with it. So there are other disadvantages, and how do we get prepared? Getting prepared is knowing what you're preparing for. So get more conversant with cybersecurity, AI, learn more, optimize AI. You cannot run away from it. The best way you can do is utilize it, know its deficiencies, and know how you can grow as an individual using AI. And that's how I'll answer that. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you so much, Esther. Okay, we have another question. Well, there were 3 questions, but because of time, I'm going to selfishly ask the last question to Phiona, which is about how does your work contribute or aim to mitigate against mis and disinformation campaigns? I don't know if you saw, but around 2 weeks ago, the Africa Center released some very horrific research about the increase in dis and misinformation campaigns in Africa, spearheaded by foreign countries, and how those campaigns especially impact election time. And Africa is very precarious when it comes to elections. So knowing that we have to contend with instability and election time violence, and now we have foreign nationals using misinformation and tech to further destabilize or further, stoke tensions. So how would you, do you think your work is contributing to that, or how would you want your work to contribute to that? So
thank you so much, Leon, on that. Yes, we many people have fallen victim. One of the reasons why we have a low tendency of women or people in, especially the women anyway, in the tech sector, or it's because of the cyberbullying, the cyber attacks, like our colleague, the second presenter, was talking about. So some of the things we've looked into, first of all, is transparency and accountability, helping the media organizations, first of all, the content creators, the online platforms. It is very crucial, to build trust and credibility. So as we speak in the country, there are those that we know, when you hear them breaking news, it is not news until we know there are very credible sources that have at least make sure they have, first of all, fact checking and verification. It's very, very important. Not everything that has been put out there is cautioned. We try to do that. We also try to promote media literacy. You have to educate the public, the young people, most importantly, to how to think critically, to understand the media literacy, the digital literacy, to enable them and empower them. Misinformation can, of course, come from any form. Media is one of them, and it's the biggest because, like you've said, in election, the first thing people are going to use is social media. And then we've been looking into, when people are at school, how do we have some of this conversation put into the skill curricula? Where can people best be educated? Phiona's work may not be as wide as, how the school community or curricula can encompass such things and resources to help build resilience against misinformation. The other thing I think when we talk about AI, cybersecurity, for me that comes into my mind and what hurts me most is biases. Algorithmic transparency and accountability. I'll tell you for the fact that many people have built some algorithms already biased. I think for me, this calls for transparency and accountability in some of these systems used on Facebook, on social media. Like the already biases set out to cause misinformation by default on how some of these codes have been aligned and done. And if you use social media, you will agree with me that there are some things we've seen and they are actually, we have no control over, but they have content preferences that they will always give attention and supply in form of adverts or in form of the information they pop up for you to consume, but which may not be the same. The other thing I think I can talk about on that is empowering public awareness campaigns. You help people to know, but like the last colleague was saying, Doreen, regulatory measures, the policies, how do we use them? If a misinformation has been done, what laws are against such disinformation? If you put up something false against a country, there are countries I know that are no nonsense. They will imprison you for life. I'm not saying it's the best thing to be done, but when they look into their policy and the regulatory measures, some things cannot be published until they have been okayed. And I'm not saying we kill the freedom of speech, but to which degree then do we speak and share information out there? I think those are some of the measures among others that we could look into. And those are some of the things for us we have really, really tried to advocate, because misinformation, cyberbullying, cyber attacks are one of the things that are immensely discouraging people from adapting these emerging technologies, and they have really, really leaving African people behind. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Thank you so much for that, and your answers as well. They were very thorough, and it's interesting because there is a fine line between encroaching on someone's freedom of speech, but also letting them face consequences for what they do online. Currently in Ghana, there is I don't want to say blogger, but he's a troll and he's gained a lot of prominence, and he said something about the president's wife. And then the next day, men came to his house and beat him up. And they said they arrested him, but then the police said they're not involved. Security said they're not involved. So now it's the thing of like, who came to this man's house and assaulted him? But people are not sympathetic because he has attacked so many people online. But also, how can you justify eroding someone's freedoms of speech, even if you don't like what they say? So that's a current debate that's happening in Ghana right now. And I know in Nigeria, they have a cyber security law, which is quite strict as well. And some people have faced unjust punishment because somebody who has more power has been able to invoke it and sue them on that basis. But yes, thank you so much. There are a few more questions left, but unfortunately we have to wrap up. If any of the speakers wish to answer the questions in the chat, please feel free. Thank you so much for our speakers for coming. Thank you for sharing your views and your insights and the work that you do. I think I can speak for all of us. It's been extremely interesting, especially as we have covered things from AI to community work and also policy, the individual, what we can do, how we can make ourselves protect ourselves online as well. I think that's always useful. And thank you to all of the guests who came and joined us in this very interesting discussion. If you do not know, we are the African Youth Security Network, and we aim to engage in Pan-African conversations and center youth voices in peace and security. You can find us at www.africanysn if you are not already a member. And if you are a member already, thank you for coming. And if you have any other questions, comments, suggestions, you can put it in the group chat and somebody will respond to you. So thank you so much, everyone. And we hope to see you at our next event.